Hey,
You was jamming. You don't have to stop. Keep the groove
well, the
going.
music's gone now.
You got your own inner sound.
Oh, but it don't sound like that though.
De La Soul, they used that vibration. They had to hold the inner sound, y'all.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I know that because like old school, right?
De La Soul, yeah. I'm no school. You know what I'm saying? Like one of them old Fat Albert jokes. You know what's happening with school in the summertime? No class.
Peace, everyone. This
hello,
is
hello.
Free.
This is another free.
Yes, and you are here with us for African Spiritual Conversations.
Yes.
How's your week been?
Oh man, it's been all over the place. It's been a very hectic, emotional, very intense week with so many things going on personally, and then also just in general in society. But I'm alive and I'm happy and glad to have you at my side. And this crazy dog over here,
his girlfriend,
wilding as usual.
Different room, different date. Same dog.
Same dog. Same dog. Same dog. So yeah, that's all good. It's all good. We've had some wonderful accomplishments this week, business wise. So yeah, how are you feeling?
I feel good. I just feel like really blessed, really grateful, really I don't know, like it's gonna go with our conversation today.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm living in my purpose, in my destiny. And so our topic for today, you gonna give me a drum roll or something?
Yeah. Life.
Are we living in our own destiny?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we living in projections of what others have wanted us to be or pressures from society?
Okay. That's a big question for self-reflection. Yeah, that's huge.
I think when we had the last conversation, I felt like it was important. It popped into my mind because we were talking about children and raising children in the tradition and how is that? And just recapping a little bit, raising children, and we practice West African Orisha tradition and Sheshe Yoruba. And so in practicing that, when we have children, they receive their Esentaye. And your Esentaye consists of the reading about the soul, the spirit, and what they've come back to do or be, and how they've come to express. On top of the naming ceremony. So that's amazing, beautiful community ritual celebration for this new life that has come into being. And us having done this for all three of our children, I feel like it's a roadmap. So for instance, when I was coming up, I used to, y'all, in the hallway of our apartment building, this lock on this side bothering me. And I would pretend that I was singing in front of a whole bunch of people. Okay. I wanted to be a singer. Actually, I don't think I wanted to be a singer as much as I wanted to be famous.
A performer. Oh, you wanted to be famous. Just what? Okay. You wanted to be known.
I wanted to be known. There was something about that for me. And my father was like, you're not going to be a singer. You're going to be a doctor. Okay. You're going to be a scientist. Okay. You know, singers end up on drugs and all this other carrying. Okay. So the doctors.
Yeah. Oh man, I think they're probably number one or two.
They get the stuff.
Yeah.
So I realized as time moved on that it wasn't so much that I wanted to be famous
Yeah.
that I wanted to be of service
Okay.
to a lot of people.
Okay.
And in that, it looked a couple different ways, because a lot of times, in my experience as a child, we're molded by what we see.
Yes.
What children see, what they are exposed to.
Yes.
And so people that I saw that made a difference were on TV. And the things. They were on excuse me.
Bless you.
They were on TV. Plus I like to dance. So all of those things were a part, and still are very much a part of me. And the thing that I realized for me as this self-expressed adult child, all those things have played a role in my own development and in my life.
Okay.
Yeah. And so my mother never really talked to me about what I wanted to be. But my father, being Nigerian, he very much impressed education,
right,
and that you're nothing without education, that you have to read, you have to study, he had 2 master's degrees, dual majors, political science. So just really much thought, like in his head, intellectual. So yeah, I feel like.
And when he was asking you, or was he more telling you what you should be, or was he asking you what you were interested in and what your?
No, he wasn't. It's interesting because he would, if whatever I was interested in, he would support. Okay. So if I wanted to take tap or ballet, he supported that. If I wanted to play instruments, he supported that. He would go out, he bought me keyboards, he bought me all these things. He never bought me the lessons.
Okay, but you had the tools.
But I had the tools.
Okay. Too bad you didn't have YouTube, then you would be a total, prodigy.
Probably.
Okay, but okay, so you had the tools.
I had the tools. He thought that was important to support whatever me or any of my other siblings were into.
Right.
And he always stressed education.
Okay.
And because I struggled with this intense pleasure, this intense desire to please, if he wanted me to be a doctor, then I guess I'm gonna be a doctor.
Oh, so you really kind of went like you.
So by the time I was 10, I was I want to be an obstetrician gynecologist.
Okay.
And then up until I think I was maybe 16, 17, okay, I'll just become a psychologist.
Okay.
And some of that was gotten ahead, realizing that people come because they have maladies.
Right.
And
you're like, I'm not trying to be dealing with that. Not
so much. I love babies, but I didn't want to also have to deal with death. Okay. And that's a part of it.
Yes.
So I didn't want to have to deal with that. And then as I got older, and I got into psychology and I took AP psychology in high school, and I got into that because I was like, oh man, my family is supremely dysfunctional, and I want to understand these inner workings of the mind. And I had my own stuff going on. So it wasn't until in my 20s that I discovered that I was an artist.
Okay. And
when I discovered that, when that came into bloom, it felt like, this is where I get to be.
Yeah.
And I will also say that it's not just one thing. I would say our destinies are multifaceted, multi-dimensional.
Sure.
I think. Sure. So yes, I'm an artist. I'm also a healer, or someone that assists people in discovering their greatness, and assists other people in discovering their most often self-expression is, in that space, and remove the things that keep them from doing that.
Okay.
And then I'm a baker, so it's all these different things. Whereas when we ask, or when people, which I think people get to stop doing, when we ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? They think it's one thing.
Right.
But it could be a whole range of things.
Right. Well, kids don't limit themselves. They may
Oh,
say a
yeah.
bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, now some adults will be like, well, you know, you got to pick one or whatever. But they might say, I'm going to be, you know, a fireman and an astronaut, and I want to race cars, and I want to build houses and make cookies. You know, and it's like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And you're right. I mean, over a lifetime, all those things can unfold. And I think that people have a destiny related to their work, but also relate to how they show up in community and all those different areas, you know? So really, I mean, for most of us, it's kind of trial and error, like in the beginning, right? Like you're saying, the different you're interested in when you want to be famous, and then evolving now what you're doing. Back on my finding, I guess, my path. The examples I had, I didn't want to be like the examples I was around. Like it was all preachers in church and stuff, and I didn't really want anything to do with that. So, I mean, I respected what the people had and everything, but that wasn't anything I wanted to do. I didn't realize until later on in life that the good ministers and stuff, they're actually great writers, because they're writing original speeches like every week and multiple ones, and like so they're orators and stuff. I didn't really think of it like that, you know. So I am a writer, and I do speak and stuff, but I didn't have that context until later on, like what they were actually doing. So maybe if I would have known that, I probably would have had a little bit more admiration and correct connection to it as a skill set.
Okay.
You know, but one of the things I value with African spiritual traditions and many indigenous traditions is the divination and the readings to kind of get you clearer on what you your purpose and your mission, you know, some of the things to focus on, you know, and in addition to you know, the tradition that we practice, you know, also, you know, getting astrology readings and different tools to kind of get some insights on, you know, who you are, you know, because there are like the traditions in our families and in our communities and everything, which may not fit who we are at this time, you know. And so then, well, how do you find your thing, you know? And it's to me, it's really about being consistent in doing whatever it is you're doing. Like you've had so many jobs and done so many different things, you know. All of that got where you are now as far as you're an artist.
Right, but I also think that
adjust myself. Okay, that's much better. Oh, there goes the thing. Go ahead.
I also feel that whatever we're here to do is already with us. It's not, you don't have to research it. You don't have to. And I've come across a lot, especially adults, who are like, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or they're like, they don't know what their purpose is.
Yeah.
And
why do you think that is? Why do you think people get kind of get stuck at a certain
because they get caught up in what other people are saying.
And what the trends are too. Like if what you're called to do or you're feeling doesn't look like, you know, brand ambassador or whatever else other people are doing, you know, it's like kind of questioning, like, oh, well, what's really going on?
Right. I'm sorry, I was distracted by the dog. I feel like it's there. I feel like it's there because you're born with it. You know what I'm saying? Like you have a soul, you have a destiny, you have it speaks to you.
Okay.
I feel like it does.
Okay.
And sometimes people's things speak to them, and the way they speak to them, they're like, I can't see myself doing that.
Okay. Say that like your gift is speaking to you, your purpose is calling, and then you're saying, that doesn't sound like me.
Nobody in my family is like, for instance, let's just give an example for Baker.
Okay.
Somebody would say, well, nobody in their family bakes.
Right.
And they may have always liked baking, but they don't see how that would be a suitable thing. And it may not be that they are actually called to be a baker.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that they're actually called to start a baking line or a pie line or a cake line.
Mm-hmm.
They might have more of entrepreneurial spirit,
Mm-hmm.
but what's calling to them is the thing to produce.
Right.
Makes sense.
And I think a big part is just getting started, right? Like you don't know where it's going to end up. Like you have this call to bake, and you go in the kitchen, you start piddling around, getting recipes and stuff. Through the process of doing that, discover, oh, I'm really supposed to have this shop, or I'm supposed to do this thing. You know, like even with our business, I was doing some videos yesterday, and I was just so thankful that I had this past experience doing videography and editing and things like that. And,
Right.
and then it, you know, there's a space for that. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time that we would be doing this and that these tools would be so relevant. But yeah, I mean, I think that's to listen to that voice or listen to that spark within and move on it.
Right. Right. So are people living in their destiny?
Well, the question comes up here: as an adult, how can one find their purpose? How can you find? And you just said it. You said it's already, the clues have been there all along. But I think it's important to take the time for self-reflection, to review, you know, like your childhood. What are some of the things you were passionate about as a kid? What were some of your interests?
For instance, one of my interests was baking.
When you were a kid?
But my mother would never buy all the ingredients.
Okay.
I was just thinking today. I was just thinking today when you were making pancakes for the children. And the smell of the pancakes were in the house.
Mm-hmm.
My parents didn't buy certain things in the house because they were like, I would blow up and weigh like 500 pounds and all these other things because I would bake all the time if I had access to it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But the truth of the matter was, it wasn't about me blowing up. They were scared to blow up.
Okay. So they were concerned about the things you bake it being so good that the whole family would look like the crumps.
Probably.
Okay.
Which I mean, I think it's the club.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about,
right?
And so I realized that. And my sister's on here too. Peace, Tales from Heaven. I realized that. And if you're looking for any kind of like bereavement or grief counseling services for your animal companion that may have passed, or also if you're looking for someone who does communication with four-legged family members,
a pet psychic. I mean, let's just make
intuitive.
Come on, man.
She wouldn't say she was
intuitive. I don't. She don't have to say it. I'm gonna say it. A pet psychic. Right. So for this life and the hereafter,
yes,
tap into Tales from Heaven. I know many people have their furry companions as family members,
yes.
And so there's nothing wrong with that. Don't be ashamed. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're practicing an African spiritual tradition, you over here, making sure that Fido or whatever name is taken care of.
Right.
Tap in if you could
tap in.
Benefit from some of those services. But yeah, so going back to baking, and you had that call early on. You wanted to
I like to bake.
Right.
And our mother would buy like the cutoffs, like, the slice, Pillsbury, things like this, or the brownie mix, whatever.
Okay.
I didn't want no damn brownie mix.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Add water kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't want that. I wanted the kit and caboodle. And so when I got old enough, I gave myself permission when I was jealous because my husband would go to bakeries and buy stuff, and I wanted to be the one to bake him stuff. So that's how I started baking. Because you're greedy.
Yeah, I mean, I like good food, and definitely like baked good, all that kind of stuff. My mom was always making cakes and stuff. So that was something that I experienced from early on. And I like to make cookies. I would always make cookies.
You do make a good cookie.
And I enjoyed that. But yeah, back to how your purpose as an adult, I think get out of the mindset of an adult. That adult mindset is so limiting. It's like some of the adulting like thinking is Yeah. What?
We didn't finish the whole thing though.
What thing?
Listen.
Okay.
I baked.
Yes.
I wanted to bake.
Right.
It was in my heart to bake.
Yes.
When I met you, it was ignited after,
Right. And you had access to all the ingredients.
And I had access to all the ingredients.
Right.
And I started doing it.
Okay.
And then people started buying it. And I would remember?
Yeah.
At first I would just bake stuff and give it away.
Right.
And then people started buying it. And that's how it started. Now, what I recognize is it may not be so much that I'm supposed to be like this baker.
Right.
But it's a part of my destiny.
Right.
I've been told that. It's a part of me that there's love inside of what I do.
Well, the baking opened up the way for you to write the first book, How to Make a Love Cake.
Exactly.
So then, that was like, and again, you don't know how the road is going to take you. You just have to go get on the road. Like if you're sitting somewhere right now, like, oh, well, how do I find my destiny? You got to get started. At some point, you have to start. The contemplation period has to move into action. So you baked, and then through the baking, you got the inspiration to do the book.
Right.
Which had a baking theme, How to Make a Love Cake. And you can go find it on howtomakealovecake.com.
Yeah.
And from there, you said, oh, I can write.
Right.
Like I'm a writer.
Yeah.
Right. And then being comfortable with that allowed the next book, Yay Sweetwaters, to come through, which has now led to toys and plush toys and on, from there, So it's like
it's an evolution.
You can never draw that map yourself. Like there's no way you could sit back and plot these
But
things.
I think that's the issue, is that people are given this linear thing.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
You're a kid, you go to high school, you go to college, get a master's, maybe get a doctorate, go to vocational school. Don't forget to get married. Don't forget to have children. Don't forget to buy that house. Don't forget to get the dog and the cat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, barring allergies.
Right.
Don't forget to do these things and retire at such and such an age. But I think that if our culture was more creative based and lent to people, the thing is that people will come into their destiny, and their destinies will be what facilitates a very harmonious and balanced society. Because there's not one thing that people will come, just like right now.
Mm-hmm.
How many MAs are there? Medical assistants.
Okay.
Because they put a thing out. It was a rush for medical assistants.
Sure.
If all these other, no shade at all, if that's what a person is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
CNAs,
a
GNAs.
CNA, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what it does is it makes, for people who don't necessarily know what they want to do, but they got to do something because they got to pay bills.
You're going to fall into the gap.
You got to go out here and get this, and you might end up working at Kaiser Permanente or, someplace like this.
Right.
But then you're unfulfilled.
I mean, even
some people are fine with it. They're like, they don't mind doing that.
Sure.
And some people's purpose is, and I don't want to make it sound like, some people's purpose is just to come here and have this human experience.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's it.
But we also wanted, we said earlier, the cultural influences, right?
Yeah.
And I really, for one, believe that each person has a unique spark or something special to contribute.
Yes.
But our culture that we live in so narrowly defines what you can do to these career roles,
right?
Which may have nothing to do with your purpose or nothing to do with your real passion,
right?
But because the priority is paying the bills, then you really invest in that,
right?
And as we're moving into a different age, time frame on the planet, I think that people are getting a feeling that there's something more, right? And so then what is that? And that to me is living authentically, finding out what that purpose is, that passion is, and going ahead and pursuing it. Like for instance, for me, I went to university and they give you these majors, right? You got to pick something at a certain point. As a freshman, you don't have to pick. They give you some time, right? General studies or whatever. But somebody's always asking you what your major is. And then at a certain point, and I had certain friends that I went to school with, they were in their sophomore going to junior year. They hadn't declared a major yet. People were like, you got to declare a major, because if you don't have the right amount of classes in a particular discipline, then you can't graduate. You can't just go and just I didn't notice at first. Like I was in the business school, but they put me out because I had dreadlocks and they didn't believe in that. And so I thought I could just take whatever I wanted and just take classes, things that I was interested in. They were like, no, you can't do that. Like you can do that if you want to, but you never graduate. And I was like, oh, I guess I was supposed to come here to accumulate knowledge. But no, they were like, no, you're supposed to come here to get a skill set and then go out into the workforce. But now when I look back, some of my colleagues and peers, many of them didn't have any jobs or any career based on what they studied in school. And they were basically doing kind of survival stuff that came up, and missing out on the opportunity to fully actualize the purpose and why am I here and what am I here to do and how do I achieve those things. And those are good questions to ask too. I mean, even going back to what the question came up, how does an adult find their purpose? You got to ask yourself, why am I here? And the answers will come. What I want to do while I'm here. What kind of impact do I want to leave? And those things will give very direct clues to what your calling or at least your interests are.
And the universe will support that. Your ancestors will support that.
Yes.
You'll find support in it.
Yes.
And yeah, so I think it came up because I feel like we're guided to have this conversation because far too often a lot of people, even making really good money, living in nice areas or relatively nice areas, they still feel unfulfilled in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one day is too long to go to feel unfulfilled. Imagine a decade. Imagine 2 decades.
Right.
Right. And so like I was saying earlier, like I feel like purposed because it's something, having a toy company and coming up with these different creatures, designing creatures and other books and things like this. I feel it from my heart space. It feels like this really full space to emanate from, because I feel like I'm in a like a lock and key, like in alignment.
And when you're in that place, it's like a flow. It's like you're excited about what you're doing, and you want to continue to progress in those areas and share what you're doing with people and all those kind of things. It's like an enthusiasm. Going back against what I was saying earlier about tapping into that childlike nature. Where it's about having fun. It's about building friendships and connecting with people and not being limited by what you think others are thinking about what you're doing or what you've been told is practical or impractical. I mean, none of this is practical. We're in a flesh shell. We've got hundreds of thousands of millions of cells, trillions of cells zooming around this casing that we have. And on the inside parts. Yeah. and we're on a ball that's spinning around thousands of miles an hour out in space.
A hot ball.
Yeah, I mean, none of this is practical, or if you think about it, none of it really makes sense.
Right.
So don't be they're hurling through space. You don't have so much time to do whatever you're going to do. So why limit yourself based on someone else's ideas or what someone told you is real or not? Like we were just talking about people in our community who, at one point people were writing them off as being totally unsuccessful and somebody who was going to be doomed to, just poverty and not be able to do anything. And then, they found their purpose and wow, huge success. We don't always want to measure success in finances, but that's not a bad measurement either.
Well, let me just say this. So the person we were speaking of, they're successful and they also give back in a huge way to their community.
Right.
So it's not based off of, well, like, just look at me, I'm flossing. It's like, okay, and these are the ways in which, and they start initiatives to be of service to their communities.
And there's a spiritual component to that too, right? And they may not necessarily fit into like necessarily African spirituality, whatever your spiritual tradition is. There is a spiritual component to Yes.
African
We
spirituality.
are one.
Right now is a festival of lights.
Diwali, yes. Wish I could throw some chalk on you right now.
That's holy.
Oh, I got it wrong. Sorry. Let me thumb through my book of spiritual traditions. Where's Google when you need it? So okay. So Diwali, what are you doing Diwali? You don't throw stuff? That's just lights. I thought it was a festival of lights.
It's not just, it's a festival of lights.
Okay, I kept saying
holy
that.
is
Holy is the one where you throw the
painted chalk.
Oh,
and that's usually more in the springtime.
I thought it was the same thing. You're right. Okay, so with this one, you like candles and stuff?
I'm gonna take away your yogi card.
Hey, that's all right. It's written in my heart.
So,
but you're saying it's all African, and I think I was saying that there's a spiritual component.
Well, because
to all this,
they're worshiping. It's for Lakshmi, Sri Lakshmi, and she's the Hindu goddess of prosperity, wealth, children, abundance, a whole bunch of things, but definitely wealth. And when I think about it, I'm like, they're all the deities. To me, that's a continuum of African spirituality, even though it's not on the continent as the continent is. That's just my perspective.
Well, I mean, just logically, we're the originators of culture and the first humans of our African people, as we define it today, right? Then all those traditions are our traditions. They all the fruits from that original seed. So, yeah, it makes sense.
So it's a time, and it's 5 days long, and it starts today.
Okay.
And like I said, I think there are a couple other deities like Rama, but Lakshmi, it's hers.
Okay.
What was I going to say?
We're talking about your purpose, and you're talking about all.
I think it's important for individuals to understand. Look, am I living my life?
Right.
Am I living from my destiny? Because this whole thing around ancestry and then our own familial epigenetics is really deep and vast. And so, just like trauma, for instance, some people's trauma is not their trauma. They never even experienced the traumas that they're out. It came from, somebody else 3 generations before getting beat and abused. They were the ovaries had their mothers, and they had. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so they're living out this pattern of abuse. So I think about that in reference to. She sound like E.T. Sound like she's saying a phone home, and it's like people say, "Oh, I want to be." Do they become like for young men? The father may have been a football player. The father had some old sports injury, so he couldn't make it. He could have been in the NFL, but he had a sports injury and he had to stop, and he became a coach. So he has sons, and then he's vicariously living out in his dreams, onto his sons, and then his man's carry it to the NFL. Then a pro ball, let's say 15 years, comes out and actually opens up a restaurant because he never wanted to really be in the NFL, but he wanted for his father to be proud, and he wanted for his father to feel fulfilled. And so he felt like if he did this, then those things would happen. So now that he did that, he could retire from that and go on to do what his dream is to be a restaurateur. That's an example I'm giving of people like dreams deferred, delayed, destiny. Was it all his destiny? Maybe not.
Would also kind of, follow up on that conversation from last week about parenting, like being very aware that you don't want to do those things to your children.
Right.
Like, look how many years this person could end up getting a real CTE or anything, like threw them totally off their path because their dad was kind of pushing in that direction.
Right.
This example that we're giving. So really be cautious.
Who's that? We'd be like, no, we just made.
But be very conscious about that, as as a parent, and even as a what you call like a mentor or support for people.
Right.
Like, you don't want to push people into stuff because you didn't do it, or you think it's a good dream.
Right.
It's really your dream secretly, but you don't have the courage or whatever to pursue it. So you're like, oh, you go ahead and do this, baby. No, don't do that. I mean, really, we want people get to be curious and find out and explore. And there are things that family lines kind of take on. Like, I work with some folks now, and their families own like corner stores and stuff.
Okay.
And it's like the kids are like, I don't want to do that. But the parents are like, well, this is how I raised you. This is how we fed you. This is how we have this house and all those kind of things. That was good for you. When we're ready to move on, the family has to. Are we going to support now?
Right, because nobody wants to do this.
Nobody in the family line wants to do this,
and they don't trust nobody outside of the family line to carry on.
Right. So that goes back to faith, right?
Yeah.
Like having faith that your children or even yourself, that you have the support that you need, that the universe, Mother, Father, God, the elevated Egum, they're going to be there to support you. Yeah, you just have to make the steps.
Mm-hmm.
They can't make the steps for you.
Right.
I mean, they've already, particularly when talking about ancestors, they've already lived their lives and stuff.
Right.
And it's like, this is your life. This is your opportunity to plant the seeds and do those things. But it's not going to happen until you make a choice.
Right.
And you have to choose, like, I'm not going to follow these patterns of everybody else. I'm going to take the time to reconnect with my real passion. And then I'm going to go ahead and step out there.
I have a sister back in Baltimore, and she's a beautiful sister. And she's been doing like community mediation work for like 20 years, maybe plus.
Okay.
And she's actually, I believe now she's the executive director of this really like almost institution around communication, right? Back when I knew her pretty well, over 15 years ago, she decided, because she's really funny, and she decided to do stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And she entered in contests and stuff. And she did it, I want to say, for about a year.
Okay.
And she got it all out of her system, and then she was good.
Yeah.
And I really believe that she was living in her purpose in that moment.
Yeah.
That our purpose is not always defined by what we bring home every 2 weeks. That it is a calling from our heart, and it echoes to us. And it's going to be varying iterations of
it may not be a long-term thing. Like you said, it could be 1 year. It could be you just got to get that poetry book out.
Right.
And then once it's done, then you're good. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah, shout out Erica Bridgeford. Yeah, so I think that to me, even though like she probably wouldn't know this unless she watched this, but she was a great example of having courage.
Yes.
And just stepping out there and doing this thing, you know, and you don't know what's going to come of it, you know, and what does actually come of it, I think that people get to discover more about themselves.
Exactly.
And that's really the point.
Exactly.
Of this life, is to discover more about yourself, more about what your authentic motives are, what drives you, what compels you. What are some things that you picked up along the way that don't even freaking belong to you, that belong to somebody else, and you get to, extract that and transmute that into something else and going about your business, right? So I think that that's important. And I could actually name quite a few people that I've known, women especially, who have been really, I think you're the only man I've ever met who has, well, let me finish my complete thought, who have been courageous in their artistry, in their art form, how to present in that, still have a 9-to-5 job or whatever,
Mhm.
maybe even parlay their job into this other aspect of what they want to do, like enroll their company, their visions, and create life that they will create. That's me.
Yeah. And then again, back to that question, how do you find your purpose? Looking at this whole experience as an experiment, like there is no roadmap to knowing who you are. There's a process of becoming more aware, but a lot of it is education and not being afraid of chances, not being afraid to be creative, to do things that
Which is why, on some level,
yeah.
I think that it's unfair when people write books to how to.
Right.
How to work a 4-hour work week, or how to how, all these different things.
Sure.
Certain things they will give people certain tools that assist them in having the courage to move forward.
Yeah.
Everybody's destiny is custom made. It's you. And so I think sometimes it will lend to people feeling defeated if they get these books and they have a whole bunch of how-to books, and they read all the how-to books and gone to all these conventions, keeping in mind that these people are having these conventions in order to make money. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so I'm not saying that
investing in personal development.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You have to be active.
You have to be active and take those tools and apply it, not as they did it,
right,
but for your own. And you might have to tweak it.
Of course, you're gonna have to.
Yeah, there's nothing. I don't think.
No one size fits all.
I'm not saying people shouldn't invest in their own personal development, but be aware of the why.
Yes.
Why are you doing it?
Yes.
Are you doing it to have a $10 million home like this person in the yacht because it seems like they have it all? Or do you want to take notes on how to do some things in order to express who you came here to be?
Exactly.
And those things I think are clear. Like, excuse me, there was this one woman. She has this, I think she had this tour. It was like dropping the knowledge tour or something like this.
Okay.
And the one thing she talks about is having a relationship with the higher power and really saying, you know what? I want you to come and show off in my life.
Okay.
Right. And that's what happens when even in our tradition, we make abo. We offer the sacrifice, whatever that is.
Right.
And then you step back.
Yeah.
And allow it to work.
Right.
Some people say, Mother, Father, God, Allah, Jesus, come take the wheel, show off in my life.
You know where I need to be and where I need to go.
Yes. Direct my steps, order my steps.
Right.
To me is, you're not saying that they're not talking to God, but then that's just part of universal law. You call in the energies. You say, hey, I surrender. Show me as you're being shown, or you do, and you let go, and let the other energy, that divine force, propel the rest of it.
Because as we said earlier, you have to surrender because you can't see all the twists and turns.
Right.
You're seeing the goal in the end, and it's always good to have the goal and keep that in mind.
Right.
But the road and the way you're going to get there, and who the different conductors are on your train, or your co-pilots and things like that, you don't necessarily know who they are. So if you don't surrender, you don't make way for spirit, you may miss on some of those key elements because you might be reading a self-help book and it says, well, this is going to be the person, and I make no, that not really. That's
right.
Not, what I'm saying. That degree of faith and the element of faith is so important. And anybody who's watching this is clearly interested in spirituality, if not involved in spirituality.
Right.
To me, that's the golden ticket.
Right.
Like, you use your spiritual practice and traditions to open up yourself to your own truth, so that you can have the type of dynamic that Fawcett's talking about here, where you have the excitement of living for your peace and your purpose, and that joy that's ultimately there, and it's not based on a comparison with anyone.
No, we have some friends. They live in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
They bought some land.
Mm-hmm.
They are like basically homesteading.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're catching rain, and they're converting this bus
Mm-hmm.
into like a lounge and a space, and they're moving trees or doing all these things because they have a vision.
Right.
And you can't tell them that they are not wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell them that they're not, living
their best life.
Living their best life. You
Mm-hmm.
can't tell them they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's so super important that people move from their space of authenticity. And what are they here to do? What am I here to do? And it might be because what I think I see far too often, especially in cyber world, especially on social media, that everybody's like, oh, if I sell bundles, I'm going to make, or if I make eyelashes, I'm going to, or if I do this is going to be the, like with Super.
Mm-hmm.
Super decided to, from what I've seen, she started a makeup line based on her wanting to have beautiful, brilliant colors that were easy for the novice. Child, you got professional artists doing makeup using Crayola case.
Right.
But it came from her pure desire and intention to do find out herself from her own will work for her own curiosity.
And be of service to others like her.
And be of service to others like her. And it just blew, you know what I'm saying, her world up. And I think I don't know her, but I don't know if she ever anticipated that. Same thing we were talking about Jessica Dupart from Kaleidoscope. All these different people, so many people out here who have amazing businesses, who went from basically, it wasn't, I don't want to say it's a rags to riches story, but definitely from a really hard place to this other amazingly wealthy, materially wealthy, resourceful space.
Sure.
And all of those things took them to be in their seats, in their own personal seat, and they weren't looking, as far as I can see, I don't know them, but as far as I can tell, they weren't looking from the right to the left. They were paying attention to what they had to do for themselves,
right,
in order to how do I expand from this, and also share and be of service, because what they are doing is beauty.
Yeah,
it's the, and so then what I've seen since then online in the last 2 years, different people come out with hair growth tonics and all these other things.
Right.
And not to say that they shouldn't do it. Hey, whatever. But there's a difference when people are doing something from a space of authenticity versus what's going to make me that guap real quick.
Right. You're always going to get copycats and stuff. And then, but the real question is, we're talking about being fulfilled.
Right.
So even if you're a copycat and you get material success, you're still not fulfilled.
Right.
There's something in your heart that there's a longing that's there to do, to participate, to be.
Right.
And if you don't address that, it doesn't matter all the other. You can have the fanciest car and all those kind of things can be fine, but there's still something missing there. And I think that's where the spiritual piece comes in. It's like, again, I'll say it. If you have your spiritual hygiene, your spiritual connection solid, then it makes this other step of finding your purpose, doing your purpose, that because you're not alone, and you don't need to copy other people.
There's this woman, her name is Annie Davis, and she passed over 20 years ago. And how many years, 20, 30 years, she cooked. She was a cook in the Jewish synagogue, right?
Yep, Addis, Israel.
And that's what she did her whole life. And she would make huge feasts for the family.
All the high holy days.
Right. And also cooked in the church kitchen.
Yes.
For your Bible's church.
For
grandfather's church. Your mother cooked in your father's church.
That's right.
Too. You can those women that they were your mom, but your grandma, and she cooked and she loved it. She loved spraying from her food. And she was absolute authentic.
Yes.
Talk of her. I never she was unfulfilled.
No,
Ever.
no,
Ever.
she didn't
ever.
move that way.
And she didn't move that way.
No.
And she always gave.
Oh man, she had so much joy around what she did as far as the cooking and nurturing. But then it's like God like multiplied her resources because she always had so much to give. Like you said, like her favorite time of year is coming up now. She loved Christmas. And she would buy so many gifts.
Even for people that were
she would have extra gifts. But if you just came by, like if we invite somebody to dinner or whatever, she had something extra that she can just go pull out to make sure that you didn't, leave, without something. Like you didn't want anybody to feel left out.
Right.
But we're like, we know she didn't make that lot of money, but some kind of way she just had. And I think that's, again, that miraculous thing that Spirit does. When you're true to your calling and you're really in it and you're surrendered, there's no lack. Wesley Howard, Mr. Magic, he always says, God is your source, right? And just when you tap into that, you realize, this is abundance in the world, and there's abundance in you. And I think the overall message that I would like to leave from this broadcast today is that if you are seeking your purpose, or you do feel like you're maybe not necessarily in tune with your destiny, recognize the universe is conspiring for your success and wants you to win.
Yes.
And that all the forces want you to succeed. Benevolent spiritual forces want you to succeed. And so don't block your own self with your mind, but tap into those benevolent spiritual forces in your elevated agun to get yourself on track. Get you a journal or something, write stuff down, go see some movies that might be motivating, talk to somebody who you feel like may have it a little bit more together.
May have to change your circle.
Big time. Like when you were saying earlier, you said the women that or whether you know them personally or online, that are self-actualized, you see because that's what you're doing. If you look around yourself and everybody is doom and gloom and they just 9 to 5 and hating it, you got to change your circle, because that means that that's where you are. It's like if you're in a club and there's too much smoke in there, you're like, what am I doing in this smoky club? Yeah, what are you doing there? You could go to another place with more fresh air. And so that's another way to think about, as an adult finding your destiny. Look around and see who you have attracted into your life and who you're around. And if they're not living in their purpose and they aren't achieving their destiny, then you may need to start seeking out some other companions.
Yes, I would say that. I don't necessarily want to say at that time that it might be a part, because I think sometimes people think that destiny is like this nirvana type of thing. When we talk about but there's some people's lives that are a little challenging, more challenging than most. And I think that it's important for people to realize that it doesn't stay like that.
Right, it's a process.
It's a process.
You're moving towards something.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if people are stagnant, baby, and they aren't moving anywhere. Right. Then they're
in ruts and stuff.
Right. Then that's not where you need to be.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, if somebody's starting off and figure it out, it may not.
It's been in the same space for 15, 20 years.
Right, and it's always some kind of complaint, and everybody's again. Then that's that's not going to get you where you.
Right. So I think I always go back to be like a child.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because children live in the world of wonder. And so if we wonder, like, what is this? What would this be? What could this be? How could this be? Oh, can you imagine just doing something just for the fun of doing it?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. When's the last time you did something just for fun? Just because I just want to just try something.
And there's some people who like to count money for fun. Sure. There's some people who like making businesses for fun.
Yeah.
I don't want to knock, because people who are here to be accountants and people here to be certain things might not think it's fun.
Remind me of Priest Ilika. It's a Rasta priest that I know in DC, and he loves business. He'll sit down and just write up an LLC for fun. Now he loves doing that. Write the whole business plan out and have this whole big vision, and he does it all the time. And some of them he actually creates the actual business. Other things are just exercised on paper.
Excuse me.
Bless you. That's passion. He enjoys that. That's actually a form of entertainment. Way. So yeah. You talk about having that childlike innocence. Also, the other thing about children too is that they're in the moment.
Right.
So they're not worried about what the outcome's going to be. A week from now or 6 months from now. They're just like, in this moment right here, I'm totally invested in what I'm doing. And exactly, Paul said, they're fearless. I'm totally invested in jumping off this bed right now. Whether or not, I'm not even thinking about,
And they usually don't.
They usually don't. Because again, the universe is going to support you. Nobody wants to see you.
I think about when we see, white body people doing like the adventure sport.
Yeah.
People have taken a sport and get corporate sponsorships.
Right. They create a sport. It wasn't even no sport. They created a sport. Right.
And they get corporate sponsorships and they are world renowned such and such and such. That's because, and this is the thing I believe our people, Africans in the diaspora, Africans all over the world, we get to reclaim our joy, our imagination, and not just take it in order to make somebody else rich. Or
our freedom. That's a process of freedom.
Right.
Just take something out, just doing, just to be doing something.
Right.
And turn it into a professional thing that somebody's going to pay me to do. Right. That's a very free way of thinking.
Yeah.
And we get to, as you're saying, get out of that mental bondage and be free. Because everything we come up with, you can name the things, it becomes a huge industry. I remember, like you said, in the beginning, I'm old school hip hop.
Boombox.
Hip hop first came out, they were like, this music is trash. It's not going to last.
I remember that.
These people are just going around here scratching records and stuff.
I remember they said it wouldn't last to the 2000s.
It wouldn't last 10 years. They was writing and said, man, this is some stuff from the ghetto. This stuff is terrible. Now, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry selling every product you can imagine. People on the news even using phrases from, Meg Thee Stallion or the Baby or whoever. Snoop Dogg has got shows with Martha Stewart. I mean, come on. I mean, there's nothing that we create that doesn't turn out, as I'm talking about African people, that we create doesn't turn out to be a huge success.
Right.
So with that kind of track record, why would any of us hold back from expressing ourselves, from being creative, from going out on our dreams? Just like our sister-in-law, our sister Fawcett. I mean, the idea of having the gift to be able to communicate. That's so cool.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's an awesome thing.
Yes.
And then, now I'm going to go ahead and not only just do this and hold it for myself and, places where I work, but I'm going to create a business so that other people can be able to utilize this resource.
And that part of being able to speak to animals means that she has not left that innocent childlike act. Because that imagination makes you open up. Right. So if you open up, then because that's where they live.
Mm-hmm.
That's where animals live, in innocence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. So she retained that, and she's able to do that.
Right.
And that's connected to her heart. So keep on doing this. We do very super.
We hope anyone has been watching today, if there's some inspiration to take away, is that you can do it. You can be or do anything you can imagine.
Yes.
Just get started. Don't wait. Don't wait. You print or some kind of key or password. You already got the stuff you need, and if you can imagine it, if it's in your mind and spirit, then you can achieve it.
And if all else fails, but if you get stuck, get a divination from a reputable priest, priestess, who can use the oracle to bring you some guidance and clarity around what you've been thinking and what has been on your mind.
And additional support from the benevolent spiritual forces.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Ashe. So with that, we are going to bid you all an amazing weekend.
Yes.
Happy Friday. Happy weekend.
Enjoy Diwali.
Enjoy Diwali, or look up Festival of Lights, and maybe look up how it's connected to African spirituality. That's a good conversation to look up other spiritual
world traditions
and how they're connected back to the continent. So we love you mucho. Take good care.